Welcome back, everybody. This is Be Inspired Counseling and Consulting, and we are doing one of our mental health moments. And these are just opportunities where we like to come to bring you information about things around mental health that will hopefully bring you maybe some information, some things to know, some things to do if you're struggling with certain areas of your life. And today I am joined with one of our awesome therapists here at Be Inspired Counseling and Consulting, James Harrison. So welcome, James.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about something that I think maybe people have heard the buzzword about this before,
Mhm.
but they may not know exactly what it is. But since we're about to do some time changes, it's getting a little colder, then people
Mhm.
might feel like they feel their mood change or differ. And so today I know we're going to talk a little bit about seasonal depression. So
Yeah.
maybe tell us a little bit, James, about what this
Mhm.
is and what does it look like?
Yeah, for sure. So, in the clinical space where you and I spend most of our time, we refer to it as seasonal affect disorder or SAD. But, in the general population, we call it seasonal depression. And so we may think, okay, well, we've got regular, depression, and then we've got seasonal depression. And we may find ourselves thinking, what's the difference between the two? Because they sound very similar, right? So, and they are very similar, but they have a couple of key differences. So, if you kind of experience low to moderate symptoms of depression throughout the year on a pretty consistent basis, fatigue, low interest, loss in appetite, uh, sleeping problems, maybe you're sleeping too much, maybe too little, you don't really want to engage with people, those are all signs and symptoms of depression, right? But they're also the signs and symptoms of seasonal depression. But the main difference is that seasonal depression, most people that experience it don't have that underlying depressive symptoms throughout the year. It tends to only pop up during certain times. And so when we're looking to kind of diagnose seasonal affect disorder, we're looking at the patterns of the depressive symptoms. So most people will experience the depressive symptoms coming up in the fall and in the winter. When the days are getting shorter, the nights are longer, usually it's cloudy, and then we start to just have that sense of maybe a little bit of hopelessness, things are a little bit dull, we're not as interested in things. And even though that's when it pops up most often, there are some people that will experience it in the spring and summer but don't experience it in the fall and winter. Now, the research is still kind of out on exactly what causes seasonal depression, but the mainline thought is that because we have the shorter days, we have less sunlight, that it messes up our circadian rhythms a little bit, and that maybe some parts of our brain are not functioning as well. And so it's having trouble making those adjustments. And so then
Yeah.
that brings in a lot of those symptoms. Mm-hmm.
I met a guy once that was living in Greenland, James. And
Mm-hmm.
in Greenland, I didn't know this, but like they can have periods of time where they have no light whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah,
in the morning, it's dark. In the evening, it's dark. When you're sleeping, it's dark. It's like this
for
certain time
sure.
of year.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about this because he was at some kind of like research facility that like looks at the stars. I can't remember what it all was.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, it was really interesting to me because he did talk about the fact that a lot of people in that area do sometimes have a little bit more of this seasonal depression because there's no really exposure to sunlight. You have to be intentional about helping your body know when it's day and when it's night for you. And I think sometimes we don't realize how much cues our body
Mm-hmm.
gets from just a normal day of like, here's the sun, it's the morning, it's getting dark, it's the
Mm-hmm.
evening. And just that also, I think maybe even changes in interaction with people. I know we're in the South, right? So there's not snow or anything like that, but people still maybe withdraw a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more when it gets colder. And like you said, it can happen in the spring and the summer. So this could be adverse for whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But all of these different things that could contribute to that lower mood and in a depression can
Mm-hmm.
really affect people. So When would you say that if somebody's like, you know what, every time it gets fall or winter, or even in the summer, I start to feel
Mhm,
real low. I feel like
mhm,
I don't have interest in doing things that I used to do. I just have
mhm,
trouble getting motivated. I'm either sleeping a lot or I'm sleeping too little.
mhm,
And they're like, maybe I have a seasonal affective disorder, or like you said, the more general population knows seasonal depression.
mhm,
What are some suggestions for them to do if they find themselves feeling that way?
mhm.
Or if when would they may need to seek help a little
Yeah,
bit further from just
mhm.
trying to do things on their own?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, if you're already aware that you kind of fall into this seasonal pattern, then we need to start kind of planning to deal with it early. So, if you know it gets real bad in the winter, we start planning in the fall for how we're going to deal with it. And so this might mean that you have to be more intentional with going ahead and getting social gatherings set up, being engaged with people, making sure that you've got fall appropriate hobbies and things that you enjoy, and already having these things planned to start engaging with. Because that will help alleviate some of the symptoms and can prevent you from getting too deep. So, preparing is important. The other things, if you've prepared or maybe you haven't and you're still having some of the issues, there's a couple of things you can do. One, it might mean having a conversation with your doctor, and a short term antidepressant might be the thing for you. It depends. You can call us, you can come, and we'll do some talk therapy, do some CBT, we'll help you figure it out, right? We will walk alongside you. And therapy and medication tend to work really well together. Uh, Other things that you can do is one thing that's become quite popular now is the idea of light therapy. It's very important. A lot of people are starting to buy these boxes that have these bright lights in it, right? And the idea behind that is that use it when you first get up in the morning. Try to spend between really 30 to 90 minutes or so with it. But you do have to be careful about which ones you buy, because in order for it to be therapeutic, it needs to put out a certain amount of light, but it doesn't need to put out any UV light.
Mm.
Yeah. And so then, if you happen to live in a part of the country that even during the fall and winter, uh, the sun is still out a good bit, I always recommend starting the day outside. You don't have to exercise or anything, but be out in the sun for about 90 minutes at the beginning of the day. 30 to 90 minutes really help boost the mood. The other thing also, and this will help with the fatigue, is don't have caffeine for 90 minutes after you wake up. The reason for that is when we wake up, our body is starting that process of getting rid of the neurochemicals that aid us in sleep. But when we introduce caffeine first thing in the morning before we really do anything else or get going, the caffeine binds to those same receptors and it prevents the body from reabsorbing that. And that's how you end up with that afternoon crash.
Yeah, James, you're telling the story of my life right now. Okay.
And beyond the light therapy, there's another little interesting. It's a type of alarm clock that you can get, and what it does is instead of waking you up with abrupt noise, which is how we think about alarm clocks, what it does is it mimics the sun coming up. It mimics the sunrise and the dawn. So it starts with low intensity light and it gets brighter and brighter and brighter. But it also uses a full spectrum of light, so it's closer to the natural light that the sun puts out. And that's a good thing to use too. Avoid blackout curtains. Make sure that your home is nice and bright, right? Because when things are nice and bright, we feel better. If things are dark and gloomy, then we're going to be more depressed.
Yeah, I didn't even know they had an alarm clock like that, but that sounds really like a better option. And I've been struggling with getting my teenager up in the mornings. I wonder if I got one of those alarm clocks for her room. If like she saw the light, then she'd be like, "Okay, I'm up." But things,
Hmm.
and I know you've experienced this with working with some of the people that we serve, and I have too. But really, these habits that you don't necessarily want to do, but that you make yourself do, like getting up
Hmm.
and looking outside or doing those bright lights or looking at different strategies that will help you, it really does go a long way in helping you not get in that deep hole. Because I don't know about you, but I feel like, when people really do get in a deep, deep hole of depression, the deeper you get, the harder it is to climb out of it. It doesn't mean that you can't climb out of it. We've seen plenty of people climb out of those holes, but the less deep you can go, the better that you're going to be able to move through it. And so what I'm hearing you say is a lot of these suggestions are things that you can do to kind of help you not really maybe experience it to the intensity that you normally would if you know this occurs for you generally around this time of year.
Exactly. And that's really the goal, is to minimize the symptoms and to minimize that level of depression you feel. Because odds are it's not really going to go fully away. If seasonal depression is something that you experience, we can help with it. But it's, we don't have a magic wand, unfortunately. If I did, I'd be waving it.
Yeah. We'd be waving it and sharing it and giving it away. Everybody come stand in a line, wave it for yourself.
For sure. Now, and to jump off of something that you said just a moment ago about, the behaviors are maybe not something we necessarily want to do. I do read a lot, and I'm reminded of a section from a book I read, I think it was last year or the year before, but I kind of reference it a lot anyway. 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos is a good book. But in there's a section where it talks about what is good for us. And the author makes the distinction that what's good for us is not always what we want.
Can you say that louder for the people in the back, James?
Absolutely. So yeah. What's good for us may not always be what we want, because, I refer to depression as a deceiver, because that's what it does. It gets us into a cycle, and it convinces us we cannot either do certain things or that we don't need to do certain things. And then that will spin up a guilt shame cycle. And so really what we're doing with these preventative measures and with different therapies is we're trying to break that cycle, right? We're trying to give an off-ramp.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And so when we have an off-ramp, when we're able to challenge some of these thoughts that seasonal depression will make us have, when we break the thoughts, we can go and look out the window and be okay with it. Even if we didn't want to get out of bed, it's still important for us to try and get ourselves to do so. We want to stick to our routines as best we can. When we don't feel like doing something, that's usually a really good indication we should just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, that's just a story of life too, but it really is, because the truth is it's not always what we're going to feel like doing, but it's those things that we need to do that are habitual, that are routine, that support us. And I think we saw this a lot during COVID, truly. There were a lot of things in our lives that were built in to support us, whether it be social engagement, whether it be communication with people that we care about, whether it be getting outside and getting together, like all just different kind of things. And when that shut down, then you could see the trickle effect that it had on people over a period of time. But it's all these things in our life that, like you said, sometimes we don't necessarily want to do them, or we don't feel like doing them. But if we do them, then sometimes it helps us feel actually better. So it's kind of like one of those cycles, like I don't want to, I don't feel like it, and I don't have energy to, but I know that if I do, then it's going to eventually have some kind of effect on me positively. Yeah. So James, if people are finding themselves kind of maybe saying, okay, yeah, I've tried some of these things, but I'm really struggling with getting out of this on my own, what are some next steps that they can take?
So if they're still struggling after they've done some of these things, they've tried to do some more social engagement, and they're still just kind of feeling bogged down, the next step really would be getting in touch with a professional, like either, myself or someone else that works here. Getting, an appointment set up, come in, we'll talk about what's going on. And then I really like to teach coping skills. I like to teach people new ways of thinking. And really, when it comes to depression, that's what we need. We need to change the way that we're thinking a little bit so that we can then engage in different behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. And that thinking is a major part. And then, like you said, learning new skills that we may not have known about or utilized before
Mhm.
can really go a long way. So,
Yeah.
well, James, thank you so much for coming on today. If this information that you've listened to has been informative, you took something from it, or you heard something you're like, yes, that is me, James is talking about me, then definitely reach out to us. Our number's at the top of the screen, but give us a
Mhm.
call and definitely we can get you set up with somebody like James or somebody that fits your needs, so that way you can
Mhm.
not stay in the feelings that you may be experiencing right now, and that you can move forward, especially this time of year, and be
Mhm.
able to hopefully enjoy and be in the moment for a lot of the things that we have coming up this season. So
Mhm.
thank you, James, for coming on, and we will see y'all next time.
Yeah. Bye.